You know that feeling when you realize you've made a terrible mistake, but it's too late to turn back. That's exactly how I felt 3 months after moving into Evergreen Heights, but let me start from the beginning. My wife Emma and I had spent years saving for our dream home. We both grew up in apartments, so the idea of having our own house with a yard felt like reaching the American dream. When our realtor, Nancy, showed us the listing in Evergreen Heights, it seemed almost too perfect. A beautiful colonial with dormer windows, a 2-car garage, and a yard big enough for the garden Emma had always wanted. Now, Nancy had said, clearing her throat, I should mention there is an HOA. Oh, that's fine, I interrupted, watching Emma's face light up as she peered through the bay window. We expected that in a neighborhood this nice. How much are the fees? $450 monthly. But that's a bit steep, I admitted, but Emma was already wandering toward the kitchen, making happy gasping sounds at the granite countertops and subway tile backsplash. The price was within our budget, barely, and the HOA fee, while high, seemed worth it when we saw the community amenities. A pool, tennis courts, and meticulously maintained common areas. We should have asked more questions. We should have read the entire 156-page HOA covenant instead of just skimming it. We should have noticed how Nancy kept emphasizing the prestigious nature of the community rather than answering our questions about the HOA board. But we were first-time homebuyers, starry-eyed and naive. The first red flag appeared the day we moved in. A woman in her mid-50s appeared at our door at exactly 9:15 a.m., wearing a navy blazer with a golden pin that read, HOA President. Her ash blonde hair was cut in what I'd later learn was her signature style, an inverted bob that seemed to mirror her perpetually downturned mouth. Welcome to Evergreen Heights, she announced, not quite smiling. I'm Patricia Wellington, HOA President. You can call me Mrs. Wellington. She thrust a thick binder into my hands. This is our Community Standards Guide. I strongly suggest you read it immediately. We've had issues with some recent buyers not understanding our commitment to excellence. Before I could respond, she was already scanning our moving boxes on the lawn. Just a friendly reminder. Boxes must be broken down and stored out of sight by sunset. And do notify your moving company that commercial vehicles are not permitted to park on the street between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. It was 9:20 a.m. Also, she added, eyes narrowing at the small welcome wreath Emma's mother had just hung on our door. All exterior decorations must be approved by the Architectural Review Committee. The next meeting is in 3 weeks, but you'll need to submit the application at least 2 weeks prior with detailed photographs and specifications. It's just a wreath, Emma said, coming up behind me. Mrs. Wellington's smile could have frozen hell itself. Rules are rules, dear. They're what make Evergreen Heights special. We don't want to end up looking like... She glanced dismissively at the neighboring subdivision, Meadowbrook Commons. She left us with a final reminder about proper grass height regulations, between 2.5 and 3.75 inches, measured weekly, and a warning that our mailbox post needed repainting. Sherwin-Williams Duration Exterior, extra white, satin finish, available at the approved hardware store only. That night, as Emma and I sat surrounded by boxes, all broken down and stored in the garage, of course, we found a yellow warning notice tucked into our door. Apparently, the moving truck had leaked 3 drops of oil onto our driveway. We had 24 hours to clean it with an approved driveway cleaner or face a $100 fine. Welcome to paradise, indeed. The real trouble started during the worst drought our state had seen in decades. July had been brutal, with temperatures soaring past 100 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 straight days. The city implemented Stage 3 water restrictions, limiting lawn watering to once per week. Every neighborhood around us had lawns turning brown, except Evergreen Heights. I first noticed something was off when I got my water bill. $847.23. That couldn't be right. We've been following the restrictions religiously, even letting our lawn go slightly brown in patches. Emma had given up on her dream of starting a vegetable garden, knowing we couldn't spare the water. There must be a mistake, I told the city utilities department over the phone. Sir, according to our records, your property has been using water almost 24/7, primarily between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. That was impossible. Our sprinkler system was set to run only on Thursdays, as per city ordinance. I decided to check the system's control panel, only to find it had been reset. While examining it, I noticed something else. A small HOA notice taped to our garage door. Violation. Substandard lawn maintenance. Fine. $200/day until remediated. Notice. All properties must maintain grade A landscaping standards regardless of city restrictions. HOA well system exempts our community from municipal limitations. The next morning, I attended the emergency HOA meeting called by Mrs. Wellington. The community center was packed, and I wasn't the only one clutching an outrageous water bill. As I've explained, Mrs. Wellington stood at the podium, wearing her signature navy blazer despite the heat. Evergreen Heights has a reputation to maintain. We invested $2.1 million in our private well system specifically to ensure our community never looks. She shuddered, drought affected. I raised my hand. But my water bill is perfectly normal for maintaining our standards, she cut me off. If the cost is concerning, perhaps you should reevaluate if Evergreen Heights is the right fit for your budget. That's when I noticed something odd. While most of us were complaining about $800 plus water bills, Mrs. Wellington's perfect lawn was somehow being maintained with a bill of only $175, according to the HOA's public records. After the meeting, I tried to talk to other homeowners, but most hurried away, avoiding eye contact. Only my neighbor Tom, a retired Marine with a perpetual scowl, stopped to chat. Something's not right, he muttered, glancing around. My sprinkler system's been acting weird. Pressure drops at random times, especially at night. And have you noticed how the board members' lawns are perfect, but their water bills are low? Before I could respond, Mrs. Wellington materialized beside us. Having a nice chat, gentlemen? Tom, I trust you'll be removing that unauthorized rain barrel by tomorrow. And she turned to me with her Arctic smile. I couldn't help but notice your grass height is approaching 4 inches. The acceptable range is clearly stated in section 7.32 of the covenant. That evening, I decided to do some late-night investigation. Around 2 a.m., I heard a mechanical humming from my water meter. When I went to check, I caught a glimpse of someone in dark clothes disappearing around the corner of my house. The next morning, another violation notice awaited. Unauthorized yard inspection. $500 fine. All property investigations must be conducted by approved HOA personnel only. But they had made one crucial mistake. The security camera I'd installed after moving in, and carefully hidden to comply with HOA regulations, had captured everything. The grainy footage showed 2 men in HOA maintenance uniforms tampering with my water meter. The battle lines were drawn. Mrs. Wellington might control the HOA board, but she had no idea who she was messing with. It was time to fight back. The security footage of HOA maintenance workers tampering with my water meter was just the beginning. Tom and I started documenting everything, and what we uncovered was more disturbing than we could have imagined. It started when Tom noticed a pattern. Homes that questioned Mrs. Wellington's authority suddenly developed irrigation problems. Their water pressure would drop, especially during peak watering hours, while their bills skyrocketed. Meanwhile, board members' properties remained suspiciously lush despite minimal charges. "Look at this," Tom said one evening, spreading out satellite photos he'd ordered of the neighborhood. "See these weird ground disturbances? They all appeared after the well system was installed, but they're not on any of the approved construction plans. Being a chemical engineer, I understood fluid dynamics. The pattern of dying lawns and thriving ones didn't make sense unless someone was deliberately redirecting water flow, but proving it would be tricky. We got our first real break when Sarah Chen, a new homeowner 3 doors down, received a $1,500 fine for unauthorized landscaping modifications. Her crime: installing drought-resistant native plants to reduce water usage. The day after she filed an appeal, her basement flooded mysteriously. It's not just about control anymore, Sarah told us, standing in her Saudi basement. They're punishing anyone who doesn't conform. A licensed plumber friend of hers investigated and found something interesting. Her water line had been professionally modified with a remote-controlled valve. That's when we started our night surveillance. Tom's military background came in handy. He set up motion-triggered cameras in discrete locations around our properties. For 3 weeks, we documented suspicious nighttime activity, maintenance crews installing unknown equipment, mysterious water pressure fluctuations, and regular visits from an unmarked van belonging to Wellington Enterprises, LLC. The smoking gun came during a particularly hot weekend. Mrs. Wellington was hosting her monthly Garden Club Leadership Summit, really just an excuse for the HOA board to drink mimosas and plot new restrictions. While they were distracted, Tom and I followed one of the mysterious pipelines we discovered. Using ground-penetrating radar borrowed from Sarah's plumber friend, we traced the water lines. They all led to a hidden redistribution system, a sophisticated network of valves and pipes that could selectively control water flow throughout the neighborhood. The central hub was buried beneath Mrs. Wellington's award-winning rose garden. But the real shocker came when we followed a second set of pipes. These led to a commercial greenhouse operation just outside the subdivision's boundaries, registered to Wellington Enterprises, LLC. She wasn't just stealing our water. She was using it to run a profitable exotic plant business. The next HOA meeting was when everything boiled over. Mrs. Wellington was in rare form, announcing new water conservation measures that would require all homes to install HOA-approved smart meters at a cost of $1,200 each. I stood up. Interesting timing, considering the drought. Would these be the same smart meters your brother's company supplies? The room went dead silent. Mrs. Wellington's smile froze. I'm not sure what you're implying. I think you know exactly what I'm implying, I interrupted, pulling out my folder of evidence. Just like you know exactly why some residents' water bills are 4 times higher than others, while their actual water pressure keeps dropping. The HOA has full authority over water management, she began, but Sarah Chen cut her off. Does that authority include flooding basements of homeowners who file appeals? Or running a commercial greenhouse with stolen water? The meeting erupted into chaos. Board members started pointing fingers at each other. Homeowners were shouting about their water bills, and Mrs. Wellington's face turned an interesting shade of purple. As security escorted us out, apparently asking about water theft violates meeting decorum rules, Mrs. Wellington caught my eye. Her expression promised war. Fine by me. We had the evidence. Now, it was time to use it. Mrs. Wellington's retaliation was swift and brutal. The morning after the HOA meeting, I woke up to find my driveway blocked by a tow truck. Apparently, my car was improperly parked, despite being in my own garage. It took 3 hours and $200 to prevent them from towing it. That was just the beginning. Over the next week, violation notices appeared daily. Improper mail collection. I'd picked up my mail at 7:05 p.m. The cutoff was 7:00 p.m. Unauthorized security equipment. Our doorbell camera. Decorative stone misalignment. One landscaping rock was allegedly 2 inches out of position. Non-standard grass pattern. Apparently our lawn had been mowed in the wrong direction. Each violation carried a $250 fine. When I tried to appeal, I discovered the appeals committee had been temporarily suspended for restructuring. Meanwhile, our water pressure dropped so low that we couldn't even take a shower without it turning into a trickle. But Mrs. Wellington's masterstroke came in the form of a certified letter from Wellington and Associates Legal Services, her sister's law firm. They were initiating foreclosure proceedings due to unpaid HOA fines totaling $17,500. Most of these fines had mysteriously appeared in the system overnight, dated months back. "She can't do this," Emma said, her voice shaking as she read the letter. "We have proof of the water theft. We should go to the police." "Already tried," Tom reported grimly. He'd been hit with similar fines. Local PD said it's a civil matter and referred it to the county. County says they need more evidence of criminal intent. Meanwhile, my water pressure's so low I have to shower at the gym. Sarah Chen had it worse. Her basement had flooded again, this time ruining thousands of dollars of stored furniture. Her insurance denied the claim, citing unauthorized plumbing modifications. Modifications that the HOA's maintenance crew had installed. I was at my desk, reviewing our options, when our kitchen sink suddenly sputtered and died completely. The final straw came minutes later. Mrs. Wellington herself, walking across our lawn with 2 board members and a professional photographer. Documenting code violations, she announced smugly through our screen door. "Though I should warn you, taking photos of HOA officials conducting official business is strictly prohibited. That'll be another $500 fine." That's when I noticed something odd. Despite the punishing drought, her designer pantsuit was spattered with water droplets. She'd just come from her greenhouse, the one being powered by our stolen water. I watched her strut across our dying lawn, her heels leaving little divots in the parched grass. Behind her, her own yard was a paradise of green grass and blooming flowers, all maintained with water stolen from her neighbors. The same water she was using to drive us into foreclosure, force us out, and probably sell our house to one of her friends at a discount. That evening, I sat in my home office, staring at my framed chemical engineering degrees. Next to them sat a photo from my old job at the textile plant, where I'd specialized in developing industrial dyes. The kind that bonded permanently to organic materials. The kind that, with the right catalyst, could be perfectly timed to activate. "Honey," Emma called from the doorway. "What are you thinking about?" I smiled, already formulating the chemical ratios in my head. "Just wondering. How do you think Mrs. Wellington would look in Technicolor?" Sometimes, when someone steals your water, the only reasonable response is to help them make their lawn more colorful. And I knew exactly how to do it. The next morning, I made 2 calls. One to my old colleague at the dye factory, and one to the state's prestigious properties competition. It was time to give Mrs. Wellington's award-winning lawn a makeover she'd never forget. My years as a chemical engineer hadn't gone to waste after all. While Mrs. Wellington thought she was pushing us toward foreclosure, I was busy turning our garage into a makeshift lab. Emma, bless her heart, didn't ask questions when boxes of gardening supplies started arriving. "Just promise me you won't get us arrested," she said, eyeing the industrial-grade containers and specialized equipment. The plan had 3 key components. First, I needed the right dyes, ones that would bond permanently to organic material but remain completely harmless to people, animals, and the environment. My old colleague Marcus at Colortech Industries was intrigued by my research project. "Let me get this straight," he said over the phone. "You need industrial-grade, UV-activated dyes that are environmentally safe, permanent on cellulose, and timed to activate approximately 12 hours after application." Purely theoretical, of course. Of course. I could hear him grinning. "And I assume you'll need the full rainbow spectrum." 4. Thoroughness of research. The second component was trickier. We needed to document the water theft conclusively. Tom's military surveillance experience proved invaluable. We set up motion-activated cameras with night vision capabilities, carefully hidden in approved bird houses. Section 7.34 of the HOA Guidelines. Decorative bird habitats must be colonial style, painted agreeable gray Southwest 7029. Sarah Chen, it turned out, had a cousin who worked for the County Water Authority. He helped us map the entire illicit water system using ground-penetrating radar. The network of illegal pipes leading to Mrs. Wellington's property and her secret greenhouse was more extensive than we imagined. "This is professional work," Sarah's cousin whistled. "Someone spent serious money installing this system. Must have cost at least $200,000. The final piece came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Wellington's assistant, Jessica, reached out to me secretly after being fired for questioning a suspicious financial transfer. She's entering the prestigious properties competition," Jessica revealed. "The judges are coming next week. She's been bragging about how her yard will be featured in Garden and Estate magazine." Perfect. The competition required all maintenance methods to be sustainable and legally compliant. More importantly, it would bring photographers, journalists, and judges right when we needed witnesses. The timing had to be exact. The dyes I'd chosen were specially formulated to remain colorless until exposed to UV light. By introducing them into the water system at night, they would flow through Mrs. Wellington's stolen water network without detection. Only when the morning sun hit would the transformation begin. Tom helped me install a custom injection system where our water line had been diverted. "You know she'll figure out it was you," he warned. "That's why we documented everything," I replied, showing him the binder of evidence I'd compiled. Water bills, surveillance photos, expert assessments, financial records Jessica had provided, and county utility maps showing the illegal modifications. We also had proof of her other schemes: the fraudulent fines, selective enforcement, kickbacks from preferred contractors, and even emails discussing how to force out undesirable homeowners through targeted harassment. The last piece arrived 3 days before the competition. 6 gallons of specially formulated dyes in red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. Each was designed to create perfect concentric circles when activated, like a massive tie-dye pattern. That night, as I prepared the injection system, Emma handed me a fresh violation notice. "Unauthorized chemical storage in garage, $1,000 fine." I smiled, adding it to our evidence binder. In less than 72 hours, Mrs. Wellington's award-winning lawn would become a rainbow testament to karma. Sometimes revenge is best served in Technicolor. Remember, I heard her barking at her maintenance crew. I want that lawn glistening with dew. Run the sprinklers again at 9:30, and make sure those flow regulators are working. We can't have anyone else's yard looking better than mine today. Tom positioned himself at the coffee shop across from Mrs. Wellington's house, pretending to read a newspaper while discreetly filming. Sarah Chen had taken the day off work, supposedly for a dental appointment, but actually to photograph everything from her upstairs window. By 9 a.m., the first signs were appearing, subtle hints of color bleeding through the perfect green lawn. Most people wouldn't notice yet, but I could see faint rings of blue and purple starting to form where the morning sun hit strongest. At 9:30, right on cue, Mrs. Wellington's sprinklers activated again. I held my breath, watching through binoculars from my home office. The extra water would speed up the dye's activation and help it spread in the precise pattern I'd calculated. The HOA board members started arriving around 9:45, all dressed like they were attending a garden party at Buckingham Palace. They gathered on Mrs. Wellington's patio, sipping mimosas and practicing their talking points about sustainable water management for the judges. That's when the first crisis hit, but not the one I'd planned. A pipe burst in Mrs. Wellington's greenhouse, sending a cascade of water through her prized orchid collection. As her maintenance crew rushed to deal with that emergency, no one noticed the increasingly vibrant rings starting to appear on her front lawn. Check the pressure regulators. Mrs. Wellington screamed at her workers. This can't be happening today. Reroute more water from the reserve system. The reserve system, of course, was the illegal network #Part 6, the calm before the storm. The morning of the prestigious properties competition dawned perfectly clear, ideal UV exposure conditions. I'd been up all night, monitoring the dye injection system and watching our security feeds. At 3 a.m., right on schedule, Mrs. Wellington's automated sprinklers had activated, drawing water through our compromised line. Mrs. Wellington was in rare form, strutting around her property in a white designer suit and matching sun hat, directing her army of landscapers for last-minute touch-ups. The judges were due at 10 a.m., and everything had to be perfect. Remember, I heard her barking at her maintenance crew. I want that lawn glistening with dew. Run the sprinklers again at 9. The next 30 minutes were pure chaos, and thanks to the news crews, everything was captured on video. The judges from prestigious properties had just stepped onto Mrs. Wellington's lawn when the real show began. It started at the center of her yard, where the first ring of purple emerged like a blooming flower. Then came blue, spreading outward in a perfect circle. The patterns I'd calculated were working even better than expected, each color bleeding into the next in concentric rings, creating a massive tie-dye effect across her entire lawn. What is happening to my grass? Mrs. Wellington's voice hit a pitch I didn't think was humanly possible. She turned to her maintenance crew chief. Fix this. Now. The crew chief made the worst possible decision, or the best, from my perspective. He activated the emergency irrigation protocol, designed to flush out lawn chemicals. This sent a surge of water through the entire stolen network, accelerating the chemical reaction exponentially. Oh my, one of the judges murmured, adjusting her glasses. This is unusual. The garden and estate photographer was snapping pictures frantically, his camera's rapid-fire clicks providing a rhythm to the unfolding chaos. The local news crews had gone live, their reporters barely containing their glee as they narrated the transformation. We live at Evergreen Heights, where current HOA President Patricia Wellington's award-winning lawn appears to be. Well, viewers, you can see for yourself. The real turning point came when other lawns connected to the illegal water network started changing colors. A perfect map of Mrs. Wellington's water theft scheme was revealing itself in Technicolor across the neighborhood. Every home she'd been stealing from developed matching tie-dye patterns, while unaffected lawns remained perfectly green. That's when the questions started. Mrs. Wellington, one judge asked, consulting his clipboard, your application mentions a proprietary irrigation system. Could you explain how it works? And why only certain lawns are showing this effect? Added another judge. This is sabotage. Mrs. Wellington shrieked, her designer suit now splattered with water that was starting to show faint traces of color. That chemical engineer. She stopped abruptly, realizing what she was about to admit. But it was too late. Sarah Chen stepped forward, holding a thick binder. You mean the chemical engineer whose water you've been stealing? Along with half the neighborhoods. We have the documentation right here, including pipe layouts, illegal modifications, and financial records. Tom joined in, his military bearing adding weight to his words. Including proof of how you've been using stolen water to run your commercial greenhouse operation. The judges were scribbling furiously. The news crews had switched from barely contained amusement to serious investigative mode. And more neighbors were emerging from their homes, many holding their own evidence of HOA abuse. Mrs. Wellington's face went through several colors, none as impressive as her lawn's current display. She turned to her faithful board members for support, only to find them backing away slowly, suddenly very interested in their phones. This is all perfectly legal, she tried, but her voice was drowned out by the sound of arriving vehicles, county water authorities responding to multiple reports of water theft and illegal utility modifications. As they stepped out of their trucks, the morning sun hit its peak intensity. The final chemical reaction kicked in, and every affected lawn burst into its full psychedelic glory. The patterns were mesmerizing, perfect circles of color, each one documenting months of water theft in brilliant technicolor. "Well," announced the head judge, closing his notebook with a snap, "I believe we have enough for our evaluation." Though perhaps not for the category Mrs. Wellington intended. Standing in the middle of her rainbow-colored lawn, surrounded by news cameras, utility investigators, and stunned neighbors, Mrs. Wellington finally did the one thing I'd never seen her do in all our battles. She went completely, absolutely silent. The aftermath of what local news dubbed the Rainbow Rebellion was more satisfying than I could have imagined. Within 24 hours of the Technicolor transformation, Mrs. Wellington's carefully constructed HOA empire completely unraveled. The County Water Authority's investigation revealed the full scope of her schemes. The illegal water redistribution system had stolen over $300,000 worth of water from residents over 3 years. Her commercial greenhouse operation had netted her nearly $500,000 in profits, all while using stolen resources. But that was just the beginning. Once the forensic accountants got involved, they uncovered a web of financial fraud that made the water theft look minor. Kickbacks from approved contractors. Fraudulent fines used to force out homeowners who questioned her authority. Embezzlement of HOA funds for personal expenses. A complex scheme involving property foreclosures and resales to friends at below-market rates. The Garden and Estate magazine article was legendary. Instead of featuring Mrs. Wellington's sustainable gardening practices, they ran a 6-page exposé titled HOAs Gone Wild. How one woman's quest for the perfect lawn led to criminal charges. The photos of the tie-dye lawns became internet famous, spawning countless memes and even a few Halloween costumes. Mrs. Wellington herself faced multiple criminal charges. Her perp walk, still wearing her now multicolored designer suit, made national news. Her sister's law firm dropped her as a client faster than grass changes color when exposed to UV-activated dye. The HOA underwent a complete reformation. The entire board was forced to resign, and the subsequent election brought in a diverse group of homeowners committed to actual community service rather than power trips. Tom became head of security, Sarah Chen took over as treasurer, and I was elected president, though I immediately pushed through reforms to limit the president's power. Our first acts as the new board. Reduced HOA fees by 60%. Eliminated most aesthetic restrictions. Encouraged drought-resistant landscaping. Created a transparent appeals process. Required all board meetings to be publicly streamed. Established term limits for board members. Remember those fraudulent fines Mrs. Wellington had levied against problem homeowners? All dismissed. The HOA's insurance policy covered resident reimbursement for the water theft and fraudulent charges. Emma finally got to plant her vegetable garden. The tie-dye lawns? They stayed colorful for almost 2 years, exactly as designed. We could have treated them to remove the dye, but the community voted to keep them as a reminder. Tourists would drive through our neighborhood to take photos, and local kids nicknamed it Rainbow Road. Mrs. Wellington's house went up for sale after her arrest. The new owners, a lovely family with 3 kids, actually embraced a multicolored lawn. They added a sign, "Here blooms justice." As for me, I received a surprising job offer from a landscape design company developing eco-friendly dyes for drought-resistant grass alternatives. Turns out my revenge had accidentally invented a new method for sustainable lawn decoration. The last I heard, Mrs. Wellington took a plea deal and was sentenced to community service, maintaining the public gardens at the county courthouse. The judge specifically requested she be assigned the drought-resistant native plants section. Sometimes karma works in mysterious ways. Sometimes it works in technicolor. Thanks for all the awards. For those asking, no, I won't share the dye formula. The world isn't ready for an army of tie-dye lawns. But I did patent an eco-friendly version for commercial use. Yes, the photos are real, and no, they haven't been enhanced. That's what happens when a chemical engineer decides to get creative with karma. Final update. Just got word that our HOA's new policies are being used as a model for HOA reform in several states. Turns out all it took was a little colorful inspiration to change the system.